Ooh, those F and C words. Change and confidence, child. 2 words that are so scary they may as well be curse words. Let's talk about it. On this podcast, we'll share our stories about hardship and starting over, making professional pivots, ending relationships and friendships, and having the confidence to navigate change. I'm Marcia Cork, the Change Coach, and this is Ooh, Those F and C Words. Hey, and happy Friday, MCs. I'm Marcia Cork, and this is Ooh, Those F and C Words. Welcome back. Listen, we are well into December, and I am already reflecting on what a year it's been. I am inspired by the season. I'm inspired by that song, My Favorite Things. So this week, I've decided to give you snippets of the top 5 episodes and moments of 2022. I'm going to share some wins and just love on you all and thank you for your love of the show. I've noticed we also have some new listeners, some new MCs. So this is the perfect episode for you guys to get a peek at a few of the past episodes while you get caught up, So these 5 episodes were the most downloaded episodes of 2022. And what I love about this finding, what the top 5 shows were, is that it's proof of the variety of change and hardship that we experience, how varied that is, and how what other people experience still resonates with us. We can have empathy and compassion and understanding for what they're going through, even if we're experiencing something completely different. I love that because these 5 shows, very different subject matter, but they all resonated with you guys. So that empathy and compassion is definitely in my audience, and that's exactly what I wanted for this podcast. So thank you. So let's jump into the listener faves, the top 5, my fave 5 most downloaded episodes for 2022. Coming in at number 5, episode 15. That was called Putting Your Wants First, How to Not Sound Rehearsed, and What's a LinkedIn Audit? So in this snippet, I'm answering a listener letter about having a difficult conversation and the technique of pretty much just ripping off that Band-Aid. We're moving from what I call a reactive state to a proactive state, right? When you build up all this anxiety around having a conversation, you're constantly in react mode and you're anxious. But if you just jump ahead, leap ahead, and discuss the hard part, yes, it's hard, but it's only, 15, 30 minutes of hard versus the constant state of anxiety and being in that reactive state. So, episode 15, number 5, here's how my response to that listener went. All right, guys, welcome back. So we are jumping into MC Q&A. Question 1 came by direct message. We'll call this listener Torn. And Torn says, okay, coach, I need your help. I'm an educator and I've got former parents asking me to tutor their kids after school. I promised my husband and children that I wouldn't do after school tutoring so I could be available for my grandbabies, but I feel torn. So attached to my students, love what I do, extra cash is nice. Saying no is really hard work because I can already hear how your decision benefits the other parties, right? We can see how it benefits her husband and children being available to them in the afternoons. We can see how it benefits the grandbabies being available to the grandbabies, right? Also keeping a promise to the family. And we see the benefit to the students, the benefit to the parents. But I don't hear the benefit for yourself. So that's the first thing to decide, because if you're making the decision to be available to other people, but there's a longing to actually still do this kind of work, to continue to be available to the students, then I would lead with, like I said, positioning what you need as you approach your family and not really giving them an opportunity to talk you out of it. So saying something like this: So I've made a decision to continue tutoring after school, but here's why. I know this impacts you, but ultimately it's the best decision for me. This is what's going to leave me feeling fulfilled. And I know you care about me being fulfilled. So, this type of statement, as you can hear, it really doesn't give them an opportunity to interject. It doesn't give people an opportunity to say, but you said, because you're saying, okay, I've made this decision and here's why. So, you're jumping right into your explanation of how it's a need for you and how it benefits you. How can anyone oppose what you say brings you joy and leaves you feeling fulfilled without them being selfish or narcissistic, right? So that's a good way to approach difficult conversations is to communicate a need right up front. The hardest part about the difficult conversations is the fear and the anxiety that we build for all of the days, weeks, and months leading up to this conversation. So with conflict resolution, the technique or the skill that you work on is being able to rip off the bandage. It's being able to say the hard stuff and say what needs to be said quickly so that you get to the other side of the hard part. So, people in situations like this, when you are having a hard time broaching a conversation, think about it like that. The sooner I have this conversation, the sooner I'm over the hump versus dodging it, running from it, and carrying that anxiety with me every day. It's an oversimplification, but if you start from a place of how does this benefit me? What do I really want? And what decision should I make so that my needs are met and I am fulfilled, and then just plan to have the difficult conversation as quickly as possible. So good luck, Torn. If you ever share an MCQ&A and I share it on the show, please write back in and give us an update on how things turned out. All right. Okay. And coming in at number 4, episode 12. Here's how to start selling yourself. So, in this episode, I walked listeners through my It's Me approach, ITSME. It's an acronym for my 5-step approach to creating an elevator pitch, brand story, and pitch deck effectively. So, in that episode, 3 MCs were brave enough to submit their elevator pitches to me and get my feedback against my It's Me approach. So, let's listen in to the feedback I gave one of those MCs.
Do you have a child in grades K through 5 that although he or she is a very smart, very bright child, very hard worker, continues to struggle with reading in the classroom? Would you agree that as a parent, that investing in your child's education is one of the most important decisions that you will make in your child's life? Do you wish that you had a reading specialist to work with your child that has classroom experience and is also trained in the latest reading techniques and strategies, and also understands an IEP, a 504 plan, RTI, dyslexia, and knows how to work with those things? And also that would be willing to partner with you, with your child's teachers, and with your child's therapist to come up with the most effective plan to help your child? Well, if you answered yes to those questions, then you sound like a great candidate for CLH Tutoring Services, LLC.
All right. So, this one is more of what we would put together as an elevator pitch, more of a structured elevator pitch. So let's see. We had the M for sure, mastery and credibility for sure. We can definitely hear the extent of her experience in this elevator pitch. Yes, did you all hear that? There is something in this person's work history, working with these unique populations that makes for a beautiful story. You know, she can share some really good stories about the families that she works with. That would be great for getting the T in there. Right now, the T isn't in there. I think the solution is obvious. The S is obvious, but the T, I can guarantee that what drove her to providing this very holistic, comprehensive tutoring structure is probably based on some past experience with, a specific student or specific family or several families. Or, maybe there was a gravitational pull for her to be more hands-on with families because working for a larger institution, maybe she wasn't able to do that. You couldn't have that one-on-one, very much like the previous example that we gave. So if she were to expand that into a brand story, that T, that truth, that background is what she's going to want to include, as that testimony. Can you feel that? Can you feel the difference? Can you feel how much closer to her experience you would be if you were a potential client? This is great content for transferring into a brand story. This particular pitch makes for a beautiful brand story. So working with this example and with this format that is very much a traditional elevator pitch, how that looks as my It's Me approach is probably more like, my name is so and so. You're going to give your name, and I'm a comprehensive reading specialist. I have classroom experience. I have specialized experience working with 504 plans, IEBs, cases of dyslexia. And several years ago, and you might, specify how many years, because that's also part of that credibility, telling us your credentials, how many years you've been in the business. So you might say, 7 years ago, while working in the public school system, I met a family, and then you would tell that family's unique story, that emotional story. And then you'd say, and that stayed with me. That experience shaped how I offer service to my clients. And now and then explain what it is that you do, what sets you apart from others, what sets your tutoring service apart from the others. And then, of course, you're going to close out with that call to action. So call me at, 1-2-3-4-5-6-7-8-9-0 to schedule your complimentary consultation and to book an assessment, or, whatever her next steps would be. Okay. Do you hear that? Do you hear the difference? And just how much more connected to that story you might be?
The third most downloaded episode was about moving abroad. See what I mean? Very different subject matter. That was episode 23, called I Moved to Mexico for My Mental, Emotional, and Financial Wellness. So that episode featured 2 additional guests. In addition to Natisha Willis, who moved to Mexico, there were 2 additional guests who moved to Puerto Rico and to Costa Rica. And this really had us feeling we could sell off everything and just move across the world, didn't it? So here are a few of my favorite snippets from that conversation.
Part of your research needs to be putting your body in the space and seeing if this is a place that you want to come back to.
Yeah.
That I think after being here for 4 years, that's actually one of the reasons I started renting out my apartment for a week at a time, because I realized people were doing all this research online, but if you don't come and actually live the way that I live, right?
Amazing.
So I'll set up, the food delivery that I use, the juice delivery. I have the massage therapist come to the house for you, like the Spanish teacher I use. Like, if you're not living the way that I live, when you come here, you're not actually having the experience you're going to have.
Right. You're still getting a tourist experience.
Exactly. So as much as possible, try to come to the place, visit the place, right? Try not to do the all or nothing thing, which I think is typically what we do. It's like, well, I'm going to throw cares to the wind and now I'm packing and moving.
Yeah.
No, come visit. Use some of those vacation days, especially, if you can work remote, like come and visit and see what it feels like to be here and to actually live here.
And I heard that was consistent with each of you. Each of you made multiple trips there before.
I didn't, but
well,
I got a little different story.
But that's your lesson learned, right?
But to
Right.
that's so true. Just sorry, really quickly. That's so true here in Puerto Rico too. People who have stayed the longest and actually were able to enjoy. I mean, wasn't to enjoy like the island, but to enjoy lifestyle outside of the States are those who embraced it, because there are still people. And I've met other people from the States here who can't stand living here because, oh my gosh, no one wants to speak in English. I'm like, well, it's not. It's no one is or it's disorganization, and I wouldn't say disorganized, but because we are so to the T in the States, outside of this kind of feel
a different orientation.
What are they to the T in the States?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, all right, ma'am, sir, how long you stay in that line for DMV? How often you complain about how rules apply to some folk and don't apply to other folks? Come on. And so I decided, I came and looked at a beautiful apartment where I am now. And I decided that I wanted to share this experience and all the resources I'd gathered and everything that I'd learned with other people who wanted to feel or experiment with what it felt like to live like an expat. Being in Playa del Carmen, for all the reasons I mentioned, right? It's a tourist town. So if you want to practice your Spanish, you can. If you want to speak English, you can. It's, all major cities have a flight to Cancun almost every day. And Cancun is like a 45-minute ride away. So you can get back to the States, if you needed to. But there's like this, I think this is just the perfect place for experimenting with what it feels like to live abroad and just testing it out. And so I decided I would, for 1 week at a time, like I would share my space and share all my resources and really support people in what I like to call, like I said, working well, leading well, and being well, and thriving as the best version of themselves.
After listening to that again, I feel like I want to take Natisha up on her offer. A week immersed in Mexico, I might just do it. What do y'all think? Email me and let me know if you've ever given moving abroad some thought. And at number 2, the second most downloaded episode was the male perspective on dating after divorce, separation, and long-term relationships. It was episode 24. It featured 2 cast members from Oprah Winfrey Network TV's Ready to Love and a Mad Flavor TV network producer. One of the guests, Corey Beelan, definitely ruffled a few feathers with his comments, but I have to admit, his metaphors and analogies are spot on. It's the thing I love about Corey. He definitely does his research, and you got to respect that. I actually had Corey back on for another episode about online dating, episode 28. But yeah, here are 3 of my favorite moments from that episode.
So she said she was filing, but next thing I know, I look around Christmas time, I'm trying to hang out with her, and she's up taking pictures with her husband. I'm like, wait a minute. and then he's on the back end messaging me, and so we actually me and her husband actually used to play football together. So he was on Facebook too. So he actually messaged me on Facebook, was like, hey man, why you doing my wife? I'm like, she told me she was separated.
Oh goodness.
She told me she was separated. I'm thinking, bruh, I'm not trying to mess with her if she's still with you. You know what I mean? And so, but that's what she was telling me. And then find out she was lying. She was saying she was separate, but they were still, I don't know what they was doing. But so now I'm a little bit more cautious when a woman says that, just because of that experience.
Would you take your life savings and put it into a stock that's 60% of the chance you're going to lose your money? They all say no. Then I asked them, I says, hey, would you still put your life savings in that same stock where 80% of the time the CFO is quitting the company because he can't quite get the numbers right? Would you still invest in it? They all say no. Well, guess what? That's marriage. 60% of marriages in the United States fail in divorce, fail. And 80% of marriages are being filed by women. So for me as a man, that's not a good deal to marry somebody to in the context of marriage. So I need someone to understand that this is bigger than marriage. We are bigger than marriage.
You got a 1 in 1 chance.
I will agree
a 1 to 2
I will
chance.
agree with Corey on the point that men don't typically leave their wives. It definitely is the women that leave. Since I was 16, I've never really had to do anything by myself. And so it was kind of weird. And I was like, I could go to a movie by myself, but I laugh a little harder when somebody's laughing next to me. So I was a little selfish in that, I was going out with women, but to me, it was hanging out.
Mhm.
I just was like, I'm using you for as much as you using me, because I'd rather go to the movie with
companionship.
someone than to go alone.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, for a long while. And it was funny how some women was like, well, is that it? And I was like, yeah, that's it. We over, we ate. And then it was another thing. It was like, because I am where I am, if we
You said, well, that's the night. See what I mean about those metaphors and analogies? Corey's on it. And Cornelius and Malik's stories had me cracking up. It makes me want to go back and listen to that full episode again. It was a good one. Listen, that conversation and that episode was an hour and a half long. And I remember saying to myself when I was, posting the promos for that show, who says men don't talk? We always say that, but this episode is reflective of, just what can be revealed when we get men in a room and get them to start talking freely. So I already have it on my mind to make that one of the live podcast recordings. Go back and re-listen to that episode. It was a good one. Okay, so that brings us to number 1. Not to be outdone, the women took the lead. This was the conversation that got everybody buzzing and telling me that we needed the male perspective in the divorce and separation conversation. So coming in as the crowd favorite, number 1 for plays and downloads, it was episode 19, Changed Ever After, Life After Divorce or Separation. And here's some great snippets from that conversation.
Like me finding myself actually, I think, happened before the separation, which probably propelled the separation, which propelled the divorce. Because it was the same thing where you get caught up in your family, and then you lose yourself. And I started doing things for myself. I started doing outdoors thing. I started doing fitness. I started doing all these things for myself, and then it kind of gave me a sense of, okay, what do you want? And it gave me a almost like a sense of confidence. But yeah, going back to the dating thing, like it's like one of those things where you have to be patient, because I feel like these streets are rough. Like they are definitely not easy. But you just have to know what you want. You really have to make a declaration, because you can be swayed easily.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to be swayed, but
swayed in what way?
Like if you like say if you're like, well, I'm not going to accept this from a guy or whatever, or I'm not going to deal with this, I'm not going to deal with that. But if he's coming, swinging, then it's kind of hard to like, I don't know if I can say that, but it's kind of but you're like, you know what, maybe I'll just change it. And there are some things you should change, like, or consider changing.
I was just going to say, I think it's also important to find happiness in whatever season that you're in, right? When you're single, you don't want to be so fixated on trying to get married that you don't make the most out of your single life. Like there's something to be said for the single life. The single life ain't all bad. And the married life ain't all good either, right? So whatever season you're in, while you're trying to take steps to get to the next step, don't negate the beauty in the current season that you're in. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
So what parting words do you have? So if we are circling back to the top of this conversation and someone listening to this episode thinking, I feel like I need to make some changes. What does life look like for me after this change? What wisdom? What can you share?
I would say this: put God first, and at any point you feel you deserve more, it means you do.
And there you have it, MCs. The top 5 performing episodes, the Fave 5 of 2022. But I have to give honorable mention also to episodes 14 and episodes 28. Those were the interview secret revealed episodes and the online dating episodes, because they were nearly neck and neck with number 5 on the list. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed these episodes as much as I enjoyed making them. Again, I'm feeling real nostalgic. I want to go back and listen to a few. Don't you? Do you ever go back and re-listen to episodes? Email me and let me know how many of you actually listen to the episodes more than once. I know we had a listener write in a couple of weeks ago saying that she listened to the divorce episode several times. Well, if you're enjoying them that much, don't keep it all to yourself. Let's make it a habit to share every episode by text or email with at least one friend and tell them to follow the show. You can always, copy the link from the episode notes and, text it to a friend, email it to a friend. Invite them into our little community of MCs. And don't forget to rate and review the episodes. So far, I'm maintaining a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts, but I would love to see more actual reviews. So please drop me a review if you're willing. Speaking of my community of MCs, in 2023, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be stepping from behind the mic and doing more live events. So make sure you sign up to receive the live event announcements and updates by going to marciacork.com and just subscribe when you see the pop-up. And I do have a January 8th event already on the books. So get your tickets now for that. It's a self-care and wellness event. It's called Different, Better, More. For the life you want, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do better? And what are you going to do more of in 2023? Yes, we are already looking ahead to the new year and what we're going to do differently. I'll try to give the link here. I made a bit.ly link. So bit.ly/diff-better. That's bit.ly/DIFF better, BETTER. But I'm also going to drop that in the episode notes, of course. That's going to do it for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this ride down memory lane. Till next time. Bye-bye.